Hi, good morning, viewers. So today we have Srikanth Baskar with us, who had done his B.Tech in Chemical Engineering from Chennai SN College. And thereafter, he went on to do his master's in Environmental and Resource Management from Arizona State University. And at present, Srikanth is doing his Ph.D. in Chemical Engineering from Penn State University. So, welcome to Education View 360, Srikanth.
Thank you for calling me for this thing. Yeah, pleasure to meet you too.
Right. So, Srikanth, our first question to you is please tell our students that how would they come to know that they are ready for their MTech or for their masters? And also, is there, when you went from India after doing your BTech to do your masters in States, did you find any learning gaps? I mean, was there something that you felt you missed on to which the students from the US were better at or not better at when compared to Indian education system?
Well, to answer the first part of your question, how to know if anyone is ready for their masters and the gap between the bachelor's in India and the masters in the US. So basically, there is nothing specific other than a very cliched answer for the first part. Like the person needs to have the thirst to learn further and to advance their education further. It's not just a matter of converting your the initials behind your name from B to M. No, it's not just that. It is really it takes a great deal of hard work to come to the United States, get the admission, and then study the course here. So yeah, to answer it simply, it is just the person should have the thirst to learn and advance themselves. And in addition to that, if I have to add to that, I can say if they have a very strong affinity to research, then they can definitely consider a master's in the United States, because here it's not that the research facilities are bad in India, but here they are more advanced, and the professors are kind of a bit more pushing the students towards research. In India, I think it's a little less. It's not completely, the professors are helpful in India also, but then it is comparatively more in the United States. So if they want to proceed towards research, hardcore laboratory work, or computational work or stuff like that, then it would be very helpful for that kind of students. They should definitely move to the United States or any other abroad universities to advance their education.
Very right. So that's my observation also, since I also belong to the education industry, that our orientation is less towards research. So when a student tries to seek admission in a foreign university, do you think they must do some sort of bridge course or some sort of internship or some sort of work experience which will help them to bridge this gap that is there between Indian education system and the US education system where when it comes to research?
No, I don't think so. Like nothing additional is required. Of course, they need to have that passion. That's the first step, and they need to do some sort of initial work. Nothing like nothing they have to hunt outside their university or college. They can approach. First they have to choose their favorite research area, and once that is done, or maybe students at certain people at the bachelor's level may not have that much clarity on what sort of research I should be doing. To those people, what they can do is they can talk to professors and find out which are the areas that have a potential to be investigated further. For instance, there are if my initial research area was in my bachelor's was wastewater treatment, and if, for instance, in wastewater treatment there are a few concepts which are completely, I would say, investigated so much. Whatever will be coming henceforth will be a little modified from what has been done before, not huge uh, research breakthrough or something like that. So they can start working on areas that have not been investigated in much depth. So that is one good thing, to identify the area of research. And once they have identified it, they can talk to a professor, and if possible, they can maybe get themselves included in that professor's research group. Definitely, that professor might be having few doctoral candidates under him or her, and they can be on getting in touch with the professor, they'll be able to make them as assistants to these doctoral scholars. So with the help of this network, they'll be able to learn a lot. They'll at times they'll also get hands-on experience on sophisticated laboratory equipments. And if not, even if they don't have any laboratory, or if they don't have any doctoral candidates or hardcore research involving, the least is what they can do is they can select the topic, and they can write something called as a literature review paper. The literature review paper is nothing but for instance, after they pick their area of research, they can use either Google Scholar or Scopus International, and they can use these two websites, and they can find what are the research articles that have been published in this specific area for the past 5 years or maybe a decade, and then kind of collect all those papers, get important points out of them, important conclusions out of them, and write a research article in such a way that you are summarizing all of these, or what you have learned from studying all of these. So this is what is called as a literature review paper, and writing a literature review paper is actually even more difficult. But after writing this and publishing it in either any of the national or internationally accredited journals, it kind of shows to your future research advisor that you have done your necessary groundwork on understanding the theoretical concepts. This is one interesting that could be done in terms of research. And you also asked about whether they can do internships or maybe get some work experience or stuff like that. Internships, I would like to classify them as two different things. One is a company or industry oriented experience, internship, and the other one is research internship. For example, what I did something called as a research internship, where my professor had contacts with certain professors at National Institute of Technology, Calicut, and he was able to talk with them and kind of make that professor take us it was an unpaid internship, but at times there are paid internships also, so they can do this inter university internships and go to central government universities like NIT, IIT, IASC, or even private top universities. So they can go to these places and kind of get an additional experience with even more sophisticated experiments, even more highly qualified professors, highly qualified doctoral candidates, or people like that. And industry experience, yes, it does help. Some people go for R&D department in the industries and gain research experience in that also. Industry approach is a little different, but still I wouldn't say students shouldn't go for that. It is a very good avenue to explore. People can do that also, but it's not mandatory. As I told you before, working within their own college or within their own university under a professor, and doing some preliminary lab work, or if not lab work, writing a research review article, will help them, will kind of provide them the necessary platform to advance further.
Very, very insightful. In fact, I've learned a lot from what you shared just now. Shrikant, now moving on to my next, rather, it's a subsidiary of what you just said. My next question is going to be coming out from there. So, when you said that students should try to have their research papers or their literature articles published in some of these important journals, can you name these journals? What's an approach? How to get them published? I mean, what's the route like?
Yeah, as I said, writing an article is something which they can find out by looking at the previous articles or talking with their professor, either one. I cannot name journals in specific, because there are hundreds, I could even say thousands of journals, scientific journals available for them to publish. And I could say the collective networks of those journals. For example, for chemical engineering and for my field, I could say there is something, a network called as Elsevier. Elsevier network of journals. They have so many journals within their network, in which people can choose what journal, what is the journal in which they have to publish. For example, if they are writing something in wastewater treatment, they have to choose journals in that which concentrates in that field. They cannot go and publish wastewater treatment journals in journal like like waste management, because they solid waste management. So they particularly concentrate on solid waste management. They won't look at your wastewater treatment. So it is important to choose the journal in that way. And for each and every journal, there is something called as an impact factor. So that impact factor is something which determines the quality of that journal. So as an undergrad student, it is very much appreciated if you can publish a paper in a journal which has impact factor of say 3 or 4. So that itself is a very good achievement, because most people won't even do that. So 3 or 4 is a very good achievement. So they can choose journals and in this manner and with this impact factor, and they can proceed this way. And in order to explain the process in a brief manner, I could say once their article is prepared, their professor will know what are the ethics or the formats that needs to be followed while writing a scientific article. Definitely, any professor will be able to identify that those things within a journal. So they'll be able to guide with that. I don't have to get into that now. So once it is prepared, the person who was primarily responsible for creating that article will be the first author. And the order of the authors are very important, because once you publish your journal, it will be cited by journals which come after you publish, and those are called citations. So the number of citations you receive for your particular paper will add value to the authors, and it will add value in such a way that, for example, the first author will get the maximum benefit out of it, the second will get a little lesser one, third is little lesser. So as it goes down, the benefits kind of declines. And the professor will be in most cases, the professor will be in a position called as a corresponding author. Because mostly the professors will be the corresponding author, because they'll be in touch with the students might graduate and leave, but whereas the professor will be still there in the field, in touch with the field. So if there are any queries that are arising from the paper, they can contact this professor who's there, and they can provide necessary clarifications or anything. So once these order of the authors are all listed, they have to go to the journal website, and they have to select reviewers. Each and every journal will have reviewers. They'll have thousands or even lakhs of reviewers, and they can select any reviewer from that list. And once they are selected and the paper is uploaded, and kind of a small informal letter is typed and sent by email to the journal editor, the process of reviewing starts, where those reviewers may or may not accept your paper, accept your paper in the sense, accept to even look at your paper. But in most cases, they would accept. So once they accept it, they would review your paper, and they will kind of give you suggestions. Those suggestions could be suggestions related to formats, and suggestions related to scientific concepts also. For instance, if the results are in such a way that this cannot be, this is not, this cannot happen, this is kind of a big thing what you have done, I kind of suspect what is happening. So in those cases, they'll ask for extra evidence, like show the authentic experimental results which you have received or stuff like that. So after this review process and all are complete, which would take approximately 4 to 8 weeks. It depends on the journal. It completely depends on the journal. It could take any time between 4 to 8 weeks. Once it is all done, they'll publish that article in their respective journal, and it will be available online to all the scientific community.
All right, that's very insightful. Thank you. I think you are the first person who's talking about all this on my channel, so it's going to be something of help to students. All right, so my next question is that how do you decide when you move on from your undergraduation to masters? So how do you decide on to colleges? Which colleges should you be applying to?
Yeah, that is an interesting and an important question. So once the student has decided to pursue masters in the abroad, specifically in the US, the first thing what they have to do is, there are several organizations that put up rankings, and those organizations are even taking the pains to put the rankings as per every department wise. So for instance, if they want to pursue in chemical engineering, they can search for rankings specific to chemical engineering. So they have to look for rankings. Some of the few famous ranking organizations are QS World Rankings and US News and Times Higher Education and many other stuff. So they can choose any one of these and they can get the rankings. And in the rankings, after seeing the rankings, they'll be able to jot down the universities in three categories where, and they have to jot it down in three categories where first category is the high achieving or imaginary. Second one is moderate or achievable, and third one is safe or a little lower, cadre. So they have to jot it down in three different categories. And my personal suggestion would be to choose, if they are considering only US, choose two universities in each category. So that makes six. Uh, um, and I would even say, in the first category, choose just one, and in whereas in the moderate and the lower category, choose a little more, and choose universities in such a way where, and also you have to check what is something called as an acceptance rate for each and every university. In case if the acceptance rate is just 5%, and that a specific student does not have a very impressive profile, it's not advisable to put to that university, apply to that university. So they have to check these things. And also, after jotting down the university, they can go into the university website and kind of look at the faculty's profile, see if any of the faculty have a research area common, aligning with yours. So that will be easy for you to go and approach that professor and kind of get a get a chance to work as their assistant, or maybe even a doctoral position in the future, or anything like that. So looking through these things are also important. And so a university can be chosen in this way. Initially find what your interest is, then check the rankings, and then jot down the universities in three different categories as I told, and then go to the university website and check the professors profile who are all there, and then take a call. So this is what my advice would be.
That's great. Shrikant, now you mentioned something in your answer that you have to check. You mentioned the word impressive profile. So, what are the components that make the profile impressive? Is it GPA? Is it research papers? Can you just list it out for our students? And also, please talk about the GRE and the language requirements.
Okay. So I'll first tell about the GRE and language requirements. That is just easy to complete. So for US, one has to take the GRE exam, and then one language proficiency exam such as TOEFL or IELTS. Whereas in case of US and Canada, they mostly accept, most of the universities, more than 90% of the universities accept TOEFL. So it is better to take TOEFL. And so these exams are kind of they are conducted by an organization called ETS, and all the details can be found in that website. And personally, I would say one would need coaching for GRE, but whereas for language proficiency exam, one wouldn't need any coaching. That would be my personal advice, not general. They can just study for maybe a month on their own for the TOEFL or IELTS, and then directly go and attend the exam. I'm sure they would get good scores in that. But for GRE, they definitely need coaching, because the reason why I'm saying they need the coaching is, if one sees the sample questionnaire for GRE, I'm sure most of the engineering students, not even engineering students, even even a school student would say, "Oh my God, what an easy exam this is." Especially the GRE exam consists of two sections. One is maths and one is English. And the maths section is extremely important, because the English section will be tough. And even if you score less in your English section, you have your language proficiency such as TOEFL or IELTS to back up for it. You can claim that even if my GRE English section is low, I have got scores in this language proficiency test. So you can fight that way. So maths section, and especially I'm talking about the maths section, anyone would say, "Oh my God, what an easy exam this is." But the key is, the GRE makes it difficult when by including the time factor. The time is something which makes GRE difficult. It is for that they need the coaching where they teach you specific tricks, and they also kind of help you to how to manage this time. They coach you for that. And one more important thing in GRE is the test is section adaptive. So which means that'll be in the first you will get maths section 1, then it'll be English section 1, and then it'll be maths section 2, and then English section 2. So the thing here is, if you do well in your maths section 1, the maths section 2, the computer will automatically give you the most toughest question paper for maths. And same applies for English also, and vice versa. If you don't do well in your maths section 1, it will give you a more easier one. But the key is you have to excel in each and every section. You cannot think like, okay, let me do kind of okay in the first one so that the second will be easier. No, that doesn't work, because there is something called, the grades are kind of relative. So you should not think like that. You should always think like, be it any section, I have to nail it, no choice. So this is how one has to think and one has to go through. And personal suggestions for coaching or self-study is, there is something called as Magoosh for GRE training, and there is something called as Manhattan Review. So these two, and there is another one called as Cap Plan or Cap My Plan. I'm not sure what the name is, but it says CAPLAN. I think it's Kaplan. So these three are so good for preparing either with a coaching or with or self-study. So these because these three have very close relation with the actual exams. And the other one is, I strongly recommend for anyone who is preparing for GRE to get ETS official GRE guide. That guide has very close relation questions, very close relation with exams. And one more thing is, in the one important aspect of that book is, I would say the most important, or not one important, at the end they give you a CD. That CD has 2 sample GRE tests, like the real GRE test with the timer running. So those and I strongly recommend you take those 2 tests a week before your actual GRE schedule, because the marks which you score in that test reflects your actual GRE score plus or minus 5. 95% this is what happens. So please don't attend that test in the CD anytime before. Attend it a week before your GRE. So that's what I would recommend. So this is what happens for GRE and TOEFL. And yeah, in TOEFL everything is straightforward, nothing is too tough or anything. One thing to remember in TOEFL is, you will have something called as a speaking task, where you need to wear a headphone like this with a mic, and a topic will be displayed on the screen. You will have 10 or 20 seconds to prepare, write down the points, and then start talking. The computer will say start talking now with a beep, and then you have to talk, and it will give you a timer also. In 60 seconds we have to stop it. So you have to frame the paragraph which you're talking in such a way that it has to be completed in 55 seconds or maybe 62 seconds or something like that. So, and that task is even more difficult, because you won't be in a single room writing your GRE or TOEFL test. There'll be people here and here, and they'll also be doing the speaking task in the same time. So everyone will be talking. And I have a very, I have this tendency where if I'm talking and someone interrupts, I get all, it all goes like, I go that way. So it was so difficult for me. I needed a lot of practice, and I think there are a lot of people like that who needs to practice that specific section. So this is all about GRE and TOEFL.
So students, stay tuned. We are going to get you the second part of the video, wherein Srikanth is going to talk in detail about the challenges that the students face when they go from India to a foreign university for education, and about the scholarships. And also please keep sharing and keep liking the video for the benefit of other students as well.